Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video, and I've recently completed my 2400 solo shuffle challenge on Holy Priest, and I wanted to give you my rundown on what I did in order to succeed so that you can take those lessons and learn them without the copious amounts of arena losses it took to learn them. And if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, then smash that subscribe button. You want to start off your game with Palm and Renew and Power Word Shield on the target that you expect to get attacked. Now, rogues are in stealth, so they're typically not the first target to attack, whereas my red is out of stealth. So I have that kind of pre-set up heal over time effects, getting ready for them. And then you want to keep monitoring where the fight is going. Now, we're likely targeting a mage or a boomkin, so the fight could move away. So I don't put my light well down just until I figure out, if targets are stunned. I see a blind on a druid, so the team is probably going to play somewhere around where the blind is. So I'm going to drop our light well down, keep palms bouncing, get serenity on cooldown, get power infusion out as soon as possible. You want to make sure that you're getting these cooldowns, multiple times in a game. I go for a stun fear onto the resto druid. We swap over to the resto druid, and after you've used chastise, now you're going to get 2 instant holy fires. We blast those through. We're going to mass dispel the ice block, apply a nice little shadow word pain to the mage. Now this cyclone that was incoming on me here, I could have faded, so paying attention to incoming crowd controls and trying to fade to immune them is important. We're going to use our Guardian Spirit here, activate Apotheosis to reset our Serenities that we've been spamming earlier on in order to free cast. Now, typically I would use my, Angel form before my Apotheosis, but we're fighting a high mobility comp, and in Shuffle, people will run away from you. So I only really use the Angel against these high mobility casters with melee when I know that my team is likely going to stand still or if I need to avoid crowd control. Now we get a nice little fear here onto the Resto Druid, and we're getting really aggressive with the Boomkin out of the game. Mind Games Holy Fire on the Resto Druid, and just palms bouncing, reposition, take the ramp. This way I can line of sight crowd control on the ramp side. And now we're going to go into Angel form and Divine Hymn. This is a combo that you're likely going to almost always want to do. It's going to make your spells free of charge, which is important because you can lose on mana in Shuffle, and just allows you to free cast that channeled spell without worrying about interrupts. Here we fade the Cyclone from the Boomkin and the Root Beam. We go for a stun onto the Boomkin and into a fear. When your team is attacking enemy healers, you want to be putting your crowd control into the secondary targets. So in this case, the Boomkin hasn't been attacked at all, so I've been focusing my crowd control on them. We smash through with a Shadow Word Death, and we are able to finish the game on the mage. Now you can see the problems with the light well, right? Because even in that first round, my team pretty much moved away from that light well, and we didn't really get back to them, so it was really tough. And also, you're gonna want to grab a cancel. I usually just click it off, but the Angel form, when your team runs away from you out of line of sight, you need to cancel that bad boy and chase your team down, because they ain't coming back to it most of the time with no voice communications in Shuffle. And it's important to use the Angel form and Apotheosis relatively early because they're 2-minute cooldowns, and with the average duration of Shuffle, you can usually get 2 of these in a game. The longer you use them, the less likely you're going to get 2 of them. We got Palm, Power Shield, and Renew on the mage. I'm expecting mage to be the main kind of target here against the rogue. We get blinded from stealth. We got all those pre-hots kind of dealing with this. We could Angel form there, honestly, to immune all this incoming crowd control, but we ended up getting away from it anyways. We're keeping our Renews up, using our instant flashlight procs when we get them, and dropping a light well down towards the mage, while it's also going to be in line of sight of the Ret Paladin going in on the other team. I see a polymorph on the rogue, so look at secondary target. We stunned the Resto Druid, so I'm just going to fear the rogue out of the game, take that third target out of the game, and while they're out of the game, I'm going to do damage. Mind Games onto the Resto Druid, try and get some Holy Fires, toss out a stun onto somebody that's off the R. Resto Druid still on the R, so we're stun the Boomkin here. We get a blind on the Resto Druid. I see my mage pulling the rogue back, so we're getting ready for some damage here. I see the rogue moving at me, so I jump into Angel form. Whenever a melee DPS is moving towards you, they want to CC you, so either you're going to use your fade or you can use your Angel form. Get that channel Divine Hymn out and just spam out instant heals. Try and get your Serenities and your Holy Words also on cooldown in that Angel form. It is going to be important because you're going to use Apotheosis pretty soon after the Angel form, so you want those on cooldown so you can take advantage of the cooldown CDR that you get. Now I see the Resto Druid. I really wanted to get a fear on him, but you can see, you can get baited into chasing enemies for a fear. This is why typically I wouldn't make this type of play, because it's really dragging me out of position. It ends up costing me my trinket, and I'm still not able to get the fear just yet, but we finally get there, and it ends up being a decent fear where we get some value, but our Ret Paladin gets cloned and ends up having to trinket and Sanka Root Beam, which is perfect in this situation. We're getting good value from our Apotheosis here. We're going to use the Chastise stun and double Holy Fire on the Boomkin. That gets the Boomkin's trinket. Mage is still taking a lot of damage, but Serenity. And we can use Sanctifies for instant heals whenever you're worried about kind of any sort of interrupts. But you've got to cast quite a bit as Holy Priest in a lot of cases to reset your Serenity, that being Flash Heal. Now, our Ret's in a clone. Our Mage is topped with Alter Time, so I toss the Shadow Word Pain out. You can toss out a Purge or a Shadow Word Pain anytime you got like a free global offensively. We get a Fake on the kick here. We get a stun onto the Boomkin. We're going to toss our 2 Holy Fires into him, get a Shadow Word Pain up. Always try and get damage out during the Chastise stuns whenever you can. And we're just going to keep pulling back with the Mage here because we're cutting the Rogue into kind of a bad spot in the back, and we're likely going to want to make a swap to the Rogue when we get him out of position. I see a blind on the rest of Druid, so I go in for a Fear. I get a double Fear. We get him into death range. We death him. We take him down, and we crack out game number 2. Now we're moving into game number 3. We got Ret and a Boomkin. So again, Boomkin's in stealth. Although Boomkin is usually a target, it's not until they come out of stealth, so you likely want to pre-hot the Ret Paladin mostly with Renew and Palm and Power Word Shield. Basically, your rotation is to press Palm whenever you have it. Use 1 charge of Serenity when somebody's taking a substantial amount of damage. You know, they lost like 10 to 20% of their health. That way you've always got 1 Serenity resetting on cooldown because you have other abilities that actually reset its cooldown. You never want to be sitting with 2 charges of Sanctify or 2 charges of Serenity because you can just get a reset on them and you're wasting that reset effectively by not making sure that you're keeping 1 charge on cooldown. So I got Power Shield, Palm, Renew on the Ret, but Boomkin doesn't go in stealth, so he can actually get attacked. So it's a bit of a mistake on the Boomkin's part. So now my pre-hots aren't perfect here. But he gets a bash on the Rogue. I'm monitoring enemy crowd control, so Rogue doesn't trinket. There's no need to panic. We get our Serenity charges out. And this is because we're going to use Angel Form him and Apotheosis pretty soon. So we're very liberal with our use of Serenity. We just want that on cooldown. We fake the counter spell. We go in Angel. We divine him. Double Sanctify, get those holy words on cooldown as soon as possible. We got a lot of instant flash of light procs here as well, but our team is kind of topped, so I'm saving some of those heals a little bit just to make sure that they get some value because you obviously don't want to overheal with those. We got Chastise stun over onto the Mage, toss out the Holy Fire. Here you can either like toss a Holy Fire on the Mage, and then I tossed one onto the Rogue as a secondary target because the Mage blinked into a really bad spot. But now we can line of sight the Mage. You can see I can free cast here because the Mage is on this side of the pillar to the right and not in our line of sight, so we can deal with this very easily. Now I see the Mage coming out with Polymorph. This is where you want to be using Fade, and you want to be using Shadow Word Death to try and avoid CC. So I Fade, I Death, it stalls, and it gets time for me to get to the other side of the pillar. You got to use Fade and Death to buy time to get you into a better spot. This is then baiting the Mage deeper into my team, which is great because it's going to enable our Ret Paladin to actually attack them. So you can outmaneuver enemy crowd controls and get them into positions for your team to be more favorable by avoiding CC with Fade and Death. Now I see lots of pressure on the Boomkin, so Serenity comes through. Keep pressing Palm as soon as we can on CD here, but we get put into a kidney shot. And our Ret is CC'd. So we're all in CC. You want to save your trinket and your life swap is like your last line of defense. Most of the time, anytime I've trinketed when it isn't used for life swap, I've ended up regretting it. So I would 100% recommend that you save your medallion and use it in combination with your Void Shift in order to be that last line of defense to save your team. Now, I also need to get a light well down. We've been skirmishing here on this side, so I'm going to just toss it in the middle of the map, so it's hopefully in line of sight as many people as possible. Keep Renews up on our targets and keep bouncing palms. Ring of Frost hits here. It's on DR, so it's not the end of the world, but we are taking a lot of damage. This is where last line of defense comes in. We go into a full blind. I trinket, but then I ended up not using Void Shift, but we used Guardian Spirit instead, which boosted our Serenity and got our Boomkin back up to full health. But now without Trinket, it's really scary. Like the next CC on me, it's going to be tough for us to survive. But I see Barkskin almost off CD, so I'm going to go for a Symbols of Hope. This is going to get me a little bit of mana back, and these are the types of games that can come down to mana. So this is why we used our Angel Form very early. We've got it off cooldown again, and our Apotheosis is also coming off cooldown. And then we also use the symbols before it. So our mana is going to extend way further than this Druid. And you can see during the Shadow Dance and Combust, it's really easy for me to heal. That's why you want to be using that Spirit form as soon as possible. I Fade when I come out of the Spirit here because I think the Rogue is trying to CC me. And now I'm trying to get in a position. Now, this is the nice thing you can do. You can Death and then run into a Ring of Frost. And then it'll trigger do damage to you, and you can avoid the CC entirely. Now we've got Apotheosis off cooldown exactly when our Boomkin is hitting like 10% health, which is going to give us a Serenity that's free and give us just enough healing to be able to stay alive to be able to take down the Rogue. So that's why it's super important to make sure that you're using these 2-minute cooldowns very early in the game, being the Angel Form and the Apotheosis. Get your Holy Words on cooldown, so chastise someone as soon as possible. That's off DR, so that way when you Apotheosis, you're going to get another reset of it, and make sure you get your Holy Fires out before you do the reset. Sometimes you're going to need the stun. It's not the end of the world if you don't get 2 instant Holy Fires out in terms of value. It's just ideal. But sometimes it is more important to get the second stun as soon as possible if you happen to have some instant Holy Fire charges still sitting. You can Shadow Fiend in the opener, or you can Shadow Fiend like in the middle of the match when you see somebody's getting low with no trinket, because it doesn't really line up with a lot of other cooldowns. It's tough to get like a 3-minute cooldown to be like that. So Shadow Fiend is more thought of for mana regen and kind of like a kill window. You can see I just stun the Ret Paladin as soon as possible, toss out 2 Holy Fires, try and get these Holy Words on cooldown. Now you can use Guardian Spirit here while you are in a stun, so I'm just trying to predict who they're attacking. It looks like the Boomkin more than the Rogue, so palms are bouncing through. I'm keeping my eyes on the Mage because I still need to avoid CC, and I'm playing at a spot where I can squeak to the left behind the pillar if I need to. Guardian Spirit up on the Rogue. Now they swap back over to the Boomkin. So I've been doing a lot of damage here and just staying out of line of sight of the Mage. And I'm just watching the Ret, because the Ret can be the one that engages right now. He can stun at me, blind, stun it, run at me, and stun me. There's a couple of options for him. Kidney shot on the Ret. Apotheosis is popped here. Palms are bouncing through. I see the Ret, so I'm going to fade. And then as he moved towards me, I ended up fade immuning his Hammer Justice. Now he runs out at me again. So I go into Angel, assuming that he's going to blind me. And I can cast a Divine Hymn around the corner. Unfortunately, the Mage is smart here and drops a ring underneath your Angel, which a lot of players will do in terms of CC. Hunters will do it with freezing traps. You can sometimes life grip a target to you, an ally to you, to eat something like a freezing trap, but Ring of Frost is unfortunate not going to be the case. Something that I didn't experiment with was a cancel or a fade. If cancel or a fade is fast enough, I tried clicking it off and fading, it's never been fast enough. But here I see the Druid off stun DR. I move in, stun fear. That gets the Sanctuary from the Ret Paladin here. Could have tried to pre-fade this Hodge. There's a lot less space, a lot less time to anticipate. That's why staying a little bit further back is generally a good idea, so you get more time to try and react and fade immune things. Our Rogue's got a Vanish Charge, and I've got my Guardian Angel coming up here pretty soon. So we top the team with the double Sanctify. Palms are still continuing to bounce, and with the Guardian Spirit up onto the Boomkin with no Bark Skin, my Rogue has evasion, so he can trade if he needs to. And I can use symbols to reset the cooldown of this Bark Skin in the near future as well, but I need to be careful of Counterspell, which is on cooldown right now, but I need to make sure I get my team top before I go for symbols if we're in the middle of a bad engagement. So that full clone on the Ret is a good time to go for symbols. He's not going to be able to do any damage. Counterspell's on cooldown. Mage is too far away to do anything. Symbols gets off. That resets the Bark Skin. Gets me a bit of mana as well, because this round is coming down to mana. So it's going to allow us to keep the game going, to buy time for that Apotheosis that comes up in 27 seconds, so that we can then chain that into the Angel farm and continue to get free healing. Now we get a full blind. Druid Trinkets out. This is a bit sketchy of a situation for us. We're just keeping up renews. We're going to stun somebody that's off DR. That happens to be the Ret in my line of sight. Just trying to maximize the DR, slow down the pressure. We get cloned again. Our Boomy's got renewal. We got a couple of heals here, but we don't have our trinket. So this is where it can become tight. And because we didn't use our Angel form first, we have to wait even longer to get it, which is costing us even more mana. Now, we happen to get our Apotheosis, so we're going to pop that as soon as we can. We use Cloak of Shadows, Apotheosis. I can stun the Resto Druid. I'm moving in for a Fear. I get a double. Then I can go for a Massive Spell on the Ice block freely from interrupts and toss out these 2 instant Holy Fires from that Chastise, put up a Shadow Word Pain, try and purge off some bops if I've got time, but I'm kind of low mana, so I'm just going to immediately go into Angel and Divine Hymn. We're at this point now when you're at 60% dampening where you just got to pre-use cooldowns, so I'm using Guardian Spirit, Guardian Angel, and just free casting as many heals as I can while they are free to try and keep my team as aggressive as possible and as healthy as possible, because it just comes down to whoever is more tanking these little end game positions are going to win. Now this Polymorph could be game losing, so not Shadow Word Deathing it, not fading it, and honestly being in the middle of the map is a big mistake in this position. I should have just continued to stay back and continue to heal, because look at this chain of CC that comes in on me. Debatably, my team could have assisted me as well at this time, but if I was in a better spot, it would have been a lot better. No guarantee that we were going to win this, but it's always good to look back on your gameplay and see what you could have done better when you lose. In this situation, being in the middle of the map was definitely the mistake. Should have stayed back towards on the ramp. I didn't have any CC that I could use anyways on the healer, so there's really no need to be there anyways. You'll always want to be monitoring that, because you can definitely have positioning costing you games, and it cost me that round right there. Now we're moving into round 5 of 6. We have the Wizard Cleave. As a Wizard Cleave into a melee cleave, sometimes what you'll see and what you want to do is rotate around the outside of the map in a circle and just constantly run away from the enemy melee attackers, pulling them into bad positions. So we got Palm Renew up. I'm expecting Boomkin to be trained in this type of matchup. Didn't get the Lightwell down before the blind, which is a bit unfortunate. It's just nice to get that as a little bit of a buffer, but Alter Time makes the Mage really tanky against this comp, so I'm not too worried about my Mage dying when they have that Alter Time. Gouge and a clone's really unfortunate. Mage goes into a Kidney. Still just monitoring who they're attacking, because it could really be anybody. I see an opportunity to sneak in, so I'm just going to get a Stun Fear on the Druid. It'll probably get Sanctuaried, but it's not a big deal, and we just randomly kill the Red. So this round doesn't doesn't really mean too much with how much damage we were able to just squeeze through right there, but getting your power fusion out, increasing the likelihood that you can just one-tap somebody like that. With a Boomkin and a Mage, it's generally maybe a good idea as well to Shadow Fiend in the opener. With a PI'd Fire Mage or PI'd Incarn, with a Fiend out, it's a lot of damage that can kind of like just clutch you a win randomly in those types of situations. And the CC that we got definitely put at least a little bit of pressure in that position. Now we got Rogue Mage Priest as the final comp into Ret Boomkin. Ret Boomkin could really kill anything on this team. Most teams will run at the Mage, but a lot of teams will also attack Assassination Rogues as they're quite a squishy target to heal most of the time. So I see my Mage running in on the right side. He's fully hotted. We're just going to stun the Ret. Toss out Holy Fires. We're spreading those onto 2 targets. Our Rogue's got Garrotes onto 2 targets, so we're just going to try and get some cleave damage in the opener here. And that gets an Iron Bark onto the Boomkin almost immediately. So I'm just line of sighting here, trying to avoid the Solar Beam and trying to guess when he's going to do it. And I'm able to line of sight it, stay towards the edge. Jumping down here may have been a bit of a mistake. Honestly, I should have stayed back. It was a bit troubling because the beam was on the corner, but I could have stayed further back because now I'm stunned into a clone. So running down the ramp as opposed to jumping over it would have been better in this position. Now I've got the Ret into a Polymorph. I'm going to jump into Angel, just drop down the Divine Hymn, and try and get as many heals out as we possibly can because my Rogue is just getting trucked and taking so much damage. I'm going to take the time to Mass Dispel a Cyclone in this matchup as opposed to a Bubble. You can use it for either one, but I really want my Rogue to not lose pressure in the opener, and it's free of mana cost when you're in Angel form, so it's just nice value to be able to get a Mass Dispel out when you are in that form. You can also use it to remove dots. It's super effective against Warlocks, Shadow Priests, so you can avoid those negative effects of removing things like Unstable Affliction and Vampiric Touch. We had a Blind Kidney that gets 2 trinkets. Could have faded this clone. Should have tried to fade this clone in this position. Now our Rogue's taking a huge amount of damage, evasion. We go for the Guardian Spirit, but I'm going to trinket life swap. I'm gambling too much right there. When you life swap, you want to use use your Desperate Prayer pretty much as soon as possible. Now we're going to stun, double chastise the Boomkin, try and turn this pressure around, toss out a Shadow Fiend here pretty soon, I think, as well. Or maybe I thought that I tossed out a Fiend here. I see the keybind lighting up, but I did not go on CD. So I'm going to toss out another Holy Fire, and there goes the Shadow Fiend now. So Combustion and Rogue cooldowns in the opener. Now my Fiend is out on the Paladin on the in-between, creating pressure and getting me mana back and making sure that if we move into the late game, we're going to be able to win on mana, which we're incredibly far ahead. So basically, we just need to stay safe at this point. We're staying far away. We're not going for stun fears, and we're likely going to be able to win this just by landing chastise stuns and doing a lot of damage. We just get a light well down here on the ramp, and we're kiting on the outside of the map, pulling away from them, trying to drag them in a bad spot. I see a kidney shot, so I'm going to toss out 2 Holy Fires and a Shadow Word Pain onto that target to get pressure out. Ring of Frost hits, that forces an Iron Bark. Now I'm going to grip the Rogue. I kind of want us to just run away and reset, make sure that we get topped, make sure that we're staying safe because we are so far ahead. I can get a Symbols off in this position when there's not a lot going on, regen some mana, reset some cooldowns as well for my teammates. I see a Combustion, so we're going to Power Infuse that Combustion as soon as possible on my Fire Mage. That's just a really good combo. I would definitely recommend Power Infusion onto the Fire Mages here. They do so much damage now since the recent rework. I've been having a lot of fun on my own Fire Mage, but here comes Incarn from Boomkin, and that is really scary. So my Rogue is going in really, really deep at the moment, and he gets stunned on his Trinket and he dies. And unfortunately, because I don't have Trinket, it's not really a lot that I could do in that position. So it's going to end up costing the round. Sometimes you got to just bite it. You know, your teammate overextends at a bad time and you just kind of deal with it. Could have maybe tried to greater fade it, but really sometimes, you know, it's just going to happen. You got to deal with it. It's in solo shuffle. But I hope you guys enjoyed this commentary. I hope you got some valuable lessons and tips to be able to apply to your own gameplay and start your grind. So thank you very much for watching. The talents are going to be in the description down below. Link to my armory. You can just copy them off there, as well as the gear. So thank you once again, and I will see you in the next one.